You're listening to the Next Team podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Next Team podcast, F1. And yes, we are back with episode 11. It's me, Tarun, and him, Yash. We're joining you a couple of days after what was a very exciting season opener back in Bahrain. And we have a lot of things to talk about. And before we jump in right into that, Yash, please take it away.
Yes, guys. So thank you so much for all your support. It really means a lot to us whenever we get likes, shares, comments in our YouTube, Spotify, whichever channels we are on. So do make sure to check out our social media content. We are at Instagram and TikTok at the Next Team SG, and we are on Spotify and YouTube at the Next Team Podcast. Over to you, Tarun.
Yep, thank you, Yash. Guys, please do listen to him. Check us out on our platforms. All links will be in our descriptions. And now let us jump into it. And of course, let's go in. Let's start in a chronological order. We do have to talk about qualifying first.
Yeah.
After at the end of the 3 practice sessions, qualifying was the real point where you could be like, no teams are sandbagging anymore, and this is it. This is the real thing. So
yeah.
First one, Q1, we saw Latifi, Stroll, Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, and Yuki Tsunoda go down. Come on, Yash, what's your reactions when you saw that papaya car out in Q1?
What can I say, man? It was a big shock to me, I mean, like after all the hype around McLaren we had after Barcelona, and even like in Bahrain, they did have a tough test with all their brake issues and all the different issues they had with their car, but it still looked a decent car, in testing. But then come this weekend, everything just went downhill for McLaren. Like the car was utter garbage. Genuinely, I mean, it gave me memories of the old McLaren Honda days, if I must say. I mean, there was a point in the race where I think Ricciardo and Norris, both of them had turns in the 20th position. I mean, that's obviously for the race. We'll get back to that eventually. But I didn't expect McLaren to be struggling that much. I mean, okay, you could say for Ricciardo, you can, cut him a little bit of slack because he just recovered from COVID. He missed the Bahrain test last weekend. And he's only had basically 3 days of limited running. And then even when he came into this weekend, I believe he had a bit of water leak or some issues as well in one of the practice sessions. So his running was really limited to, really understand the car. And for a driver like Ricciardo, who has not been at the top of his game since last season, missing such crucial days, especially in a new generation of the cars, is going to cost, a lot of trouble basically for him. So I guess you could cut a bit of slack for him, but then you could just see that overall the pace of the car was not there. It looks stable, surprisingly, but then there's just no pace. So I guess it's more of a performance issue where probably you could say that the brake issues with McLaren are having, it's kind of hampering the performance. So let's see, maybe over time they'll fix that issue up. I guess time will tell, man.
Yep, time will tell, we'll see. And also another thing, is the 3 Mercedes engines out in Q1.
That was very surprising, wasn't it?
Right. Would that be something to worry about for them?
You could say, I guess. I mean, it's really hard to tell, because the thing is, if you talk about Mercedes engine, then you kind of have to categorize Mercedes with, the actual factory team with that whole thing. But then Mercedes, in terms of at least the engine power, is pretty decent. I don't think there's any issues with the car in that department. That issues were obviously a whole different ballgame. So, but it is worrying. I guess the thing is probably that with this whole new regulations and because the whole new Mercedes package, I guess it will take teams a little bit of time to understand how they can probably get the most out of it. Like teams like McLaren and Williams, they will always have a little bit of less information compared to the manufacturer, the manufacturer is not going to give everything to the suppliers, basically, to the teams, I mean. So I guess that's the reason why you probably saw a little bit of the Mercedes power team struggling, but it was a genuine surprise because usually you always associate Mercedes with the top, really good engine performance.
Right.
And it's just, I guess, again, it's just one race. It's too small of a sample for us to really judge if the Mercedes engine is actually not that great this season. So yeah, let's see over the next few races if that's really the case.
Yep. And of course, Yuki rounding off the Q1 eliminations. We'll come back to him later when we talk about Red Bull issues. And then we talk about Q2, Guan Yu Zhou, Albon, Norris, again, the other papaya car, Mick Schumacher, and Esteban Ocon. These five were out. Any particular surprises for you?
Not really, actually. I mean, obviously, as a McLaren fan, you'd expect McLaren to be in Q3, so that's a little bit of a surprise. But then considering Ricardo went out in Q1, you couldn't really call it a surprise.
I think it kind of set the pace for the qualifying. It really set the pace for the whole weekend for McLaren.
Exactly, yeah. But I would say, in terms of the main surprises, of course, Haas, because they look really good. Mick looked really good as well. I mean, you don't have to talk about K-Mag, one of the most experienced drivers of the grid.
Yep.
But even Mick looked really good in the car. Obviously, not quite up to K-Mag standards, which is, if you look at it in a whole bigger perspective, is a little bit absurd because, Mick has had a lot more running in the car compared to K-Mag, who just literally flew down to Bahrain like last week. So that's a little bit, but then that's just testament to what a great driver K-Mag is, and Haas did a brilliant job to get him back. So I would say in terms of surprise, the positive surprise, of course, Haas. Like the car looks really good. It looked competitive. I think even in Q1, Mick was actually in top 10, I think, like when at the end of Q1 elimination. I can't remember, but I believe he was in the top 10 as well in that Q1 session. So like times are looking good, man, for like in terms of they look to have a really good pace car, like a race car as well as a qualifying car, Haas. So I guess those 2 years hiatus from the top is kind of helping Günther Steiner regain his ship back on track.
Yep, for sure. And of course, the final 10 shootout, Q3. So I'm not going to read out the entire order, but, just looking at it, while you're watching it, what was your reaction, You don't have a car in the fight now. There's no McLarens in there. So what was your prediction actually? Who did you think was going to get pole?
I mean, okay, I think even in my preview, I said I thought Max would probably get pole position because they just look like such a strong package from preseason and everything. I mean, no doubt, Ferrari looks strong as well, but in terms of raw pace, you could always say that, Red Bull's probably there. So I was definitely rooting for Max to get pole. But then the one driver which is really rooting for is actually Valtteri Bottas. I mean, even Alpha is getting a bit quite unnoticed that they seem to have developed a really good car. And you see there's this trend that it's the Ferrari engines are actually doing really good, at least in Bahrain at least.
Yep.
So that's like true. Haas was in top 10, Alpha is in the top 10. Yeah.
And Ferrari themselves, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's why. So I was actually rooting for Bottas, and he did really well. I think qualified P6. I think was it P6?
Started alongside
right beside
Hamilton.
Lewis. Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, quali was really interesting, man. Like I think the top three are separated by just 1/10 of a second, and I believe Max could have gotten pole. I think in the last lap, in his final Q3 run, in the very last corner, he had a bit of an oversteer moment, which kind of cost him a little bit of split second. And I guess that's what cost him the pole, I would say. But then I think if you look at it whole perspective, I think Ferrari definitely had a faster package. They were just, you associate Mercedes with sandbagging. I think Ferrari were a little bit sandbagging, keeping their hands in the pocket until qualifying. So yeah, it was a great show, man. It's really great. What about you? Who are you rooting for, and what are your thoughts on Mercedes so far?
Mercedes so far, let me just start with that. I think throughout all the free practices, it did set the tone for the weekend. It was kind of clear that we're not going to be challenging for the race win just yet. And of course, Q1, Q2 showed that, and by the time Q3 came about, it was just a matter of just getting close enough to the top teams, to the fastest cars, basically.
Right.
And I guess 5th place, P5 for Hamilton, that was good. P9 for Russell, guess you would expect more from Mr. Saturday, but
Yeah, I mean, he made a mistake in the final run, locking up too deep into turn one.
yeah. So you can't. I guess you can't blame him too much. Let's see how he goes on with a few more races.
And I feel it's also because he had this innate pressure, like more pressure on him because Mercedes were already not doing well, that he has more pressure on himself to actually do well to match Hamilton,
Yeah,
I feel that's a added extra pressure which was on Russell as well, which probably led to him making a couple of mistakes. But I mean, not a big deal because we know that Mercedes car is a lot faster than P9. So and you showed it in the race, made up all the places back. So yeah, I mean, I would say for Mercedes also the interesting thing which Toto said, I don't know if you caught that, is on Saturday after quali, Toto said that was the first day ever since preseason testing started that they had very little issue with the porpoising effect. So I guess you could say that the main issue of this car is definitely on the porpoising, the bouncing of the car. So I guess once Mercedes sort that issue out, I'm pretty sure they'll claw back the 3-4 tenths which are lacking in quali. But I would say the more concerning is the lack of race pace. And I guess we'll come back to that eventually later on.
Yep, once we start talking about the race itself. I mean, I think we can move on to the race itself if there's nothing else from quali. Yep, so the race, it was something, wasn't it? Let's start with the
opening. It was the game of two halves, basically.
Yep, definitely. Wasn't even 2 halves. It was just like, first 55 laps or something were fine, and then 56 and 57, everything changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I guess, I don't know, I felt like that start there was nothing overly remarkable that you wouldn't see in any other race. Did anything catch your eye with the race start?
I would say one thing which caught my eye is that it's very visible to us now as fans that the cars have become a lot slower. Like I had a friend who recently got into F1 like a year back, text me and say that why are the cars going so slow? When in fact it's just that, I mean, he knew that the whole aero change and everything, but then it was just a lot of visible, like especially in slow speed corners, like your turn 1, your turn 10. The cars look really slow, and especially when they're bunched up, they literally look like they were tractors going sometimes.
Yep.
From the aerial cam shots, especially. But I mean, I'm not saying like I'm against this regulation. I'm just saying that this new regs have made the cars a little bit slower. But I feel, to me, at the end of the day, if that led to a lot greater racing, a lot more closer racing, then I'm all for it. And I think we saw quite a bit of it in this race as well. Like drivers said they could follow a lot better. Then we had those 3-4 laps of great battle between Max and Leclerc into turn 1. Consequent laps also.
Yep.
So I guess that really showed that you can actually follow the car pretty well, overtake. But the other issue teams faced was in terms of, I think a lot of drivers were having brake temps, really high brake temps throughout the race. So I'm not sure whether it's related to the aero or if it's something just purely based on track specific or like car specific. That's something I'm not too sure about. But yeah, I mean it's kind of promising, I guess, good signs. But like I said, small sample size. We need to go onto tracks which are more difficult to overtake. And then that's when we'll really start to see if, this new regs are actually making the effect which they're thought to make an effect.
Yep. I think the true test would be when we go to like Monaco or even Singapore. That's when we will really find out.
I think we can take Monaco out of the equation because with the cars, the tires being so big, I just don't see how 2 cars are going to fit into that narrow straight of Monaco. It's
right.
It's going to take a lot of balls of steel, basically, if you're to send it down inside of someone in Monaco.
For sure.
Yeah.
So opening, not too much to talk about. The racing that you mentioned between Leclerc and Verstappen, of course, something to be talked about. Right after Verstappen pitted to try and undercut, I believe. And okay, let me see if I'm remembering this right. Leclerc pitted the following lap. He came out just in front, and they fought like 2 or 3 more laps after that.
Yeah, that's right. I was actually really surprised with that because Max was about, I think, 4 seconds behind. Leclerc when he pitted, and in that one lap he managed to gain 4 seconds almost on him, which is kind of insane actually.
Yep.
And let's just take this into consideration that actually Ferrari did a really good strategy in the sense that they pitted immediately, and then their pit stops are really quick. If you look at them, they're
Yes,
only
it was.
2.5, 2.6 seconds around
Yep.
there.
I think
So-
many of the other teams are getting like high 2s and even low 3s.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was, these guys had it.
Which is kind of
consistently, so-
surprising because you always associate Ferrari with making strategic blunders. So
Exactly. A lot of things have changed for Ferrari this year. And
yeah.
oh, but just slightly off topic on the since we're talking about pit stops, the fastest one of the weekend went to Ricciardo actually.
Oh wow! At least some consolation prize for McLaren.
Yep. But yeah, I feel like that battle, that the one thing that stood out for me was how calm Leclerc was throughout the whole thing.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
all the way he was not trying to force Max off the track. He was not trying to push his way through. He just every time they went to turn one, he gave the space. He let Max brake hard and burn his tires, and he just took it right back 2 or 3 corners later. And I feel like that is the kind of racecraft that you need to have as a champion driver.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that it was a remarkable racing from both of them. Like both of them showed each other a lot of respect, and both of them raced hard. And I feel Leclerc was really smart at every time whenever Verstappen came down. I was kind of getting surprised because the once Verstappen sent it from way back, like I don't know, it was Martin Brundle was saying it's like 8 times back, and he just sent it down inside. But Leclerc was smart. He always anticipated that, got the cut back, got the DRS, and got him back at the end of turn 4. In turn 4. So I feel Leclerc played it really beautifully.
Yep, I think that was the time I saw Leclerc went a little bit wider into turn 1.
Yeah. He got a really good switch back, basically.
Exactly. I was like, oh damn it, he lost his line, and then he just makes a beautiful switch back and he takes that line back, and Max is just going too deep to fight back.
Outbreak him, exactly.
Oh my god, this guy is serious. I guess that's the kind of thing that you don't really see from Leclerc in the last couple of years, because Ferrari haven't been in that fight just yet.
Yeah.
But when it does come to it, he's a magnificent driver, isn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of him in terms of pure racing crowd, but we have heard a lot about him from F2. I mean, there's once in Bahrain, he basically came from last to finish first, I think, in F2, when he was in F2. So we know he's a brilliant racer, brilliant driver. And if Ferrari actually have a real championship winning car, I mean, I don't want to say anything too much because it's just the first race.
Yep.
And honestly, over the season is the development of the car, which is going to make a big difference. The big teams are going to invest a lot of money. They're going to get their upgrades in. Your Mercedes is going to come back firing. Red Bull is already quick. They will probably somehow go even quicker. We know that. So like Ferrari can't afford to drop the ball game if they want to stay in the fight. So they have to upgrade their car and keep up with the pace of the competition as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, but coming back to Leclerc, I mean, one thing which I noticed, I saw on Twitter actually, Will Buxton tweeted, is that on the main straight, Leclerc actually stayed in 7th gear instead of shifting up to the 8th gear, so that he would allow Max to overtake him, so that at the end of turn 2, turn 3, he would get the DRS so that he could overtake him back, and then that's when he shifted up to 8th gear to overtake him. And I didn't notice that, so I went back to look at the onboards, and he actually did that, which is, I mean, that just shows his real brilliant racing IQ,
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, that's how I was really surprised by what Verstappen was doing. I felt first time he went in, I was like, okay, that's fine, didn't work out. Second time he went in, I was like, why is he trying again? He should just wait until he gets out of that turn 1, turn 2, and then overtake him on the turn 3 back straight, basically.
Right.
So, and I don't know, like Verstappen, sorry?
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that I felt Verstappen was really off the game, like in this race. Like even after the safety car restart, which we'll come back to eventually. But since you're on the topic of Verstappen and Leclerc, when Verstappen, I mean, I know he had power issue steerings and all that during that time. But even when you looked at a restart of his safety car, I don't know why he was trying to pick the inside line, which was going to compromise his straight line speed all the way down. And like I don't know what was going on with him, man. And he was very, I don't know, You heard his team radio, I'm sure. He was he was basically pissed the entire race.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I guess it was an off day for him, but it was very unlike the world champion Verstappen. I felt.
Yep. I mean, since we did talk about safety cars, and what did bring out the safety cars was it was Gasly with the power issue, wasn't it?
Was it power? I thought he had some
electrical,
electrical
was
issue.
it?
Yeah,
Sorry?
electrical issue.
Yeah, electrical issue.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I guess this is where we need to get a little bit more technical with our race analysis, because there's all sorts of reports. Some are saying that the Red Bulls had a fuel pump issue with a homologated part, and it is unrelated to the electrical issue. Others are saying that it's the same thing, and there's some big flaw with Red Bull powertrains.
Yeah.
And what have you gathered so far from Reddit and Twitter?
Honestly, I do not know, man. Like, I felt that probably for the Gasly incident, I would say it's probably some electrical issue, which caused the fire, basically. But like, yeah, I feel like Reddit's quite split on like what happened to Red Bulls, basically, because like the probability of having the same failure on two different cars in literally the same time. I mean, you think about it in just a logical perspective, is pretty slim. Of the same part, that too. Like, it's not even like completely something different related part. So, I mean, I found it really surprising that it was indeed actually the same thing. Like, I felt actually when Perez spun, I thought he just lost it on traction.
So did I. I thought my first thought was, oh, damn it, did Hamilton rear end him? And is that why it's spun?
Yeah, exactly.
And then they showed that rear wing footage, and I was like, oh, thank God. No contact, no penalties this time. The podium is on.
Yeah.
And then, it was weird because I just thought he just lost it in turn one. But actually, I feel like the chances of having two failures in the same engine, in the same powertrain, at the same time, is actually a lot higher than you make it out to be, because if it's a systematic problem, it is going to come out at that point.
Right.
In all systems, so I think logically that is probably what is happening. Maybe it's something with the powertrain itself.
I heard there's rumors. Yeah, I heard there's rumors that there's some, because like you said, it's a homologated part. So that means FI basically supply that part to all the teams, and it's the same part. Everyone's running the same part. So there's rumors circulating that probably the part given to Red Bull was either defective, or there's some issues basically with the whole manufacturing process, or I mean it's just all rumors, we do not know. I guess Red Bull knows the answer. And have they released any statement? I don't think they have, right? They just said that it's some fuel pump issue.
Yeah, that's all Christian Horner said. He just said it was the fuel pump issue.
Right.
But there's also all sorts of things going around with, saying that maybe it is actually the MGU, because both cars had their the harvesting light on the rear wing turned on just before.
That reminds me, it was the MGU, I think, for Gasly. I'm not sure if it was the K or H, but I know it was one of them. I remember reading it somewhere. So it was one of those parts which actually failed for Gasly. But I guess it's a concern, like it's 3 out of the 4 Honda cars had reliability issues this race.
When Yuki is the only one to finish the race with your engine, it's not a good sign.
It's not exactly. So I guess it's a little bit concerning, but I don't think it's anything of a big issue. Because if it's just a part failure, then I guess sometimes, you're supplied defect parts and it happens, you can't always go through the whole, like, even if you go through quality control checks and everything, there's sometimes some failure might always happen.
Yep.
So I guess you could just say bad luck and karma for Red Bull for celebrating in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. I mean, it is a very unpredictable sport. You never know what the smallest part that fails is gonna ruin your whole race.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did it give you any Abu Dhabi flashbacks about a safety car?
Yes, it did. Especially the safety car restart, and then they show the numbers in it. I was like, oh my God, what are they doing it again? And then I later found out that was all the cars that were left, and they were just being extra clear. But it was just terrifying scenes.
Right. I can't remember, was it Crofty? I think I was listening commentary. Crofty made this beautiful comment. I mean, it was a hilarious comment saying that, if any, like, he mentioned all the lap cars basically.
Mhm.
And so that the race directors that just take note of this in case, like, because race directors watch a live feed, give live commentary and everything. So in case if you need help, I'm giving you all the race, like the lap cars numbers for you, which is pretty hilarious, I would say.
Yeah, I mean,
Crofty being just
no one's
Crofty.
really forgotten it, have they? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be forgotten anytime soon.
I guess since we're on that topic, let's just do a quick touch up because over the weekend the FI released their official investigation report. Did you have a chance looking at it, and what's your thoughts on it?
I didn't look through the whole thing. I just skimmed through it.
Yeah, same.
It just seems to tell me that Michael Masi was acting to the
In good
best
faith,
interests
basically.
of the race,
Yeah.
and it was just a human error. And honestly, I
Yeah.
don't know what to make of it. It is,
Okay.
yeah, it just feels like pointless at this point. They already replaced him. We have the new directors, multiple.
Okay.
And I mean, the championship is given. They're not gonna move it back, so
Yeah.
whatever.
And also at the end of the day, let's just look at the whole perspective. Like Verstappen won it on fair terms, like he didn't do anything wrong.
Mhm.
So like it's also like if you talk about this whole giving the championship or voiding the championship and stuff, I feel it's unfair.
Yeah.
But what I would like to say about this whole thing is that I do admit that I feel that the report was correct in the sense that it mentioned that there was human error.
Mhm.
Then at the same time, the report also did mention that Masi was basically entitled to do what he wanted to do at the same time.
Yep.
Essentially. So I guess this rules and all the nitty-gritty part of the rules which FI need to strengthen, I would say.
And actually, from what I heard, they haven't changed that part of the rules yet that allows the race director exclusive control over safety car and everything.
Right. But I think they have new
they do have a new
departments in the whole FIA, the race directing department, I think too.
Correct. They have new race directors, obviously. They have a new system on how they operate.
And so I think now there's 2 race directors, so they're going to split their duties or something like that.
Yep, they take turns for each race.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, but I mean, my whole perspective of this whole situation, I feel like it's time for everyone to just move on this whole thing, because like it's happened, things happen, humans make mistakes, and I'm certain that Masi acted in good faith as well, because I mean, if he acted in an interest of the team, then it's just I don't know what to say now, but I'm confident enough that he probably acted in good faith and he felt whatever he's doing was the right thing to do at the moment given time. But obviously, in a whole perspective of things, it probably may not have been the right decision. I think his intent was right, but the way he executed it was wrong. So I feel like it's just time to move on, close the book, close this chapter, because we've got a lot of exciting racing coming up in 2022.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, so that's a good way to sum up everything from last year that we didn't actually get to talk about before the season started. Anything else on the race, Yash?
Let's talk about some midfield teams. I feel we haven't talked a bit like in the midfield. I feel it was pretty decent racing in the midfield. I feel Yuki and Bottas were having quite a bit of a battle.
Bottas just cannot get away from looking at that rear wing of the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, and that was one battle, and I felt the person who I was most impressed with was the rookie Guang Yu Zhou. I think he had a brilliant race. He was overtaking. He was very mature.
He had that one battle with Lewis when Lewis just came out of the pits. I mean, granted, Hamilton looked like Bambi on ice on those hard tires, but it was still remarkable as a rookie in an Alfa Romeo when you're going up against one of the most decorated drivers of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I felt it was just a very mature drive from Guang Yu Zhou, and I'll be honest with you that I felt like he did not deserve the seat. Like I felt probably Antonio Giovinazzi was the best. He should have stayed at Alpha still. That was my own personal opinion. But I feel if he keeps on performing this kind of results over the season, I think my thoughts on him will really change, because I know that he's a great driver. I'm not taking anything away from him. I just felt that probably Giovinazzi deserved that seat a lot more than him.
Yep.
But if he keeps on performing this kind of results, I think the future is really bright for Alpha because they seem to have a really good car under them as well. And if Bottas is going to keep on getting into points and Zhou can get into like every 2 races or something, I think that's a big achievement for Alpha as a team itself.
Yep, for sure. And well, I mean, we might as well talk about the teams, right? Sum up.
Yeah.
We've talked about Alfa Romeo, and well, let's talk about another team that scored decent points. The Haas, going back to them.
Yeah.
So let's see, Magnussen in 5th, Mick in 11th, and I mean he did miss out on points. It was not very close to 10th place. Do you think Mick is underperforming in relation to Kevin? Or is Magnussen the one who is overperforming in relation to the car itself?
I would say it's a bit of both, but I don't think Mick is necessarily underperforming. I felt that for Mick as a driver, like the whole of last season, let's just be honest, he had a very low ceiling to compete with. I mean, there was no bar literally. He just put a step forward and he's going to be ahead, for Mick.
Yep.
So
I feel that race in P19, you'll probably beat his teammate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he doesn't even have to beat his teammate. He just has to be in the car. As long as he drives the car, he's going to be his teammate, most likely, unless he had any failures. Yeah. So, but that aside, like I feel because of that, the whole season he didn't really have much of competing. It kind of took away from him. I mean, in a sense, like that muscle memory kind of loses for you, like in certain situations where you should be probably a lot faster, like in race battles, especially.
Right.
And I felt probably that was what was lacking for Mick rather than outright pace.
Mm-hmm.
But then in terms of outright pace, you could also say K-Mac might be overperforming the car. But honestly, we can only make this, like, I can only answer this question to you after a few, like 4 or 5 races when we really see where this Haas car actually is, because sometimes this cars can be very track specific. So Haas might perform really well in Bahrain, but then if you go to Saudi or we go to Australia where it gets a little bit more technical, they might struggle. Who knows?
Yep.
So time will tell. I mean, this goes for all the teams, not just Alpha.
Sure.
Sorry, not just for Haas. Yeah.
Haas, yeah. Yep. And another team that scored decent points, Alpine with Ocon in 7th, Alonso in 9th. Would you say?
Surprised with them actually.
So I'm guessing you wouldn't say that's where that's where they would be expecting to finish.
I would say it's more where I thought they were after the end of preseason testing, because I think in testing they didn't really look. They had a few issues. They didn't really look that quick, and the car looked okay, not too great. That's what I really thought of Alpine. I mean, a lot of bookies actually had them like probably the 7th or 8th fastest team.
Right.
At the end of testing. So I thought that as well. But then they turned up. The cars look great. They look pretty quick. Good race pace. I think Alonso struggled particularly this race. Not sure why. But then Ocon had a brilliant race. I mean, despite having a 5-second time penalty for that spin on Mick and lap 1, he still managed to get P7. Right? You said.
Right.
So yeah, that's a fantastic result for him.
Yep, that's true. I mean, despite that penalty, that was the only penalty of the race, right?
Yeah, that was the only penalty.
Yep. Pretty remarkable finish for him. Yeah. And another remarkable finish, Yuki Tsunoda, the lone Red Bull Ranger in 8th place.
Yeah.
I don't know. How would you put this AlphaTauri performance? I feel like, with Gasly out, yes, it is going to affect the judgment a little bit. But, overall qualifying, everything included. Well, is that what they would be looking forward to?
I would say, yeah, I guess for like AlphaTauri, it's mainly just trying to get into the points. I don't think they have, they wouldn't have ambitions of trying to compete with the top because there's a conflict of interest there, with Red Bull.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess for them, it's really about trying to get the points for the team here and there. And if they can get the greater points, like Gassier's got a lot of time P4s, P5s, and that's even an added bonus, I would say. But with the competition being just so tight, I think for them it's really about trying to get into the points. And I think that's the same for a lot of midfield teams. I think Haas is probably trying to do that as well. Alpine as well at the moment.
Alfa Romeo.
And yeah, Alfa Romeo. All these teams are probably just fighting for the last scrap of the points, essentially. And I feel this season the competition is just so much harder that I think it's going to be fascinating for the midfield battle, at least for the upcoming season.
I just feel like this year's midfield battle, we've had more teams because you have McLaren from the front joining back into the midfield battle. You have Haas and Alfa Romeo from back markers and being pushed forward into the midfield battle.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting. And
now apparently everyone's saying Haas are probably the fourth fastest team on the grid, overtaking McLaren.
Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they were given their recent performance.
Right.
And let's talk about Aston Martin. Stroll in 12th, Hulkenberg in 17th. I guess you can give Hulk a bit of a free pass.
Yeah, for sure.
But Stroll, I mean, do you think he should be doing better? Or is it just the car is not quite there
car,
yet?
Man. Yeah, I feel it's a car because they had a really disappointing qualifying as well, just like McLaren. They were just, I think they went out in Q1. Yeah, both the cars went out in Q1. Yeah, and even in race pace, it didn't really look that great. I guess for Stroll, he really got fortunate with all the retirements up ahead of him. And I mean, that goes to say for a lot of other drivers as well, it kind of helped them. But then, particularly, the position of Stroll, I would say, is not reflective of where the car is, in my opinion. And I feel along the pace of where McLaren is at the moment, which is at the back of the grid, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah. Which is why it's going to be quite interesting because I believe Seb will come back this weekend, or I hope he will come back this weekend.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if he does come back, that's great. But also at the same time, I feel like, recovering from COVID and getting back in the car is a little bit, it's hectic, So maybe he might want to just rest and come back in Australia. I don't know, because Aston Martin hasn't announced who's going to, is Hulk going to still stay in the car for Saudi. So I guess we shall see. But then it will be an interesting dynamic if Seb does not actually get a good car. There will be question marks on his future in the team, I feel he will start to doubt the team.
Yeah, that's very true.
I mean, I don't know when is his contract ending with Aston Martin, but then I feel at this stage, Lawrence Stroll's been talking about this whole 5-year project, but then now we are in the second year of the project. You should be looking at some sort of progress at least, Right. At the moment, there's no sort of progress. So I hope they get their act together. And like I said early on in the show, that this season is going to be defined by development. So every team has an equal chance of developing and getting forward into the pecking order. So never rule out anybody, man. Even Williams, who knows? In 2-3 races, they might be battling for the midfield places again.
Yep. I mean, I don't want to say it can only go up for Aston Martin, but we all know that's not true. This is F1. It can go very, very
wrong
low.
As well.
Yeah. And speaking of back markers, do you think it's going to get better for McLaren in the near future?
I mean, I can only hope so, man. As a McLaren fan, I can only hope for positive things. I don't want to be too negative because I know that McLaren have the resources to get the team up. So money and everything, that's not the issue for us. But the issue is really, have we got the car right? What are the issues? Are we able to fix the issues? And time is also of the essence, because you do not want to bring your upgrades too late into the season where you're already in a very strong back foot. And then it's going to take you a long time to crawl back up because the competition is just going to get harder and harder and harder. So it's really about winning the development race. If there's something issue with the car, they should really fix it and bring it into, hopefully by Australia, because Australia, there's a decent amount of gap to produce and bring a new part or whatever they need to the race. So, but I really think it's just a brake disc issue. Because I believe Andres Seidel actually said that the front brake disc which they were using, because of the whole issue they had, were a lot larger. So it created a lot more drag and reduced their downforce essentially.
I see.
So that's probably one of the reasons why they're struggling. And also the whole thing affected their braking in the corners as well. So they carried a lot lesser speed into the corners. So that's my understanding of it.
anything that affects your aerodynamic is going to affect every part of your race, because you're going to be
Exactly.
slower through the slow corners, you're going to be slower through the fast corners, you're going to be slower on the straights. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's really probably the main part of the car that you should be looking at.
And honestly, the only reason I felt why McLaren looked even worse is just that, in race stream, you're just put in more fuel, then the car becomes a lot heavier, and this gets even heavier effect on the car, essentially.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's not a big issue. If it's really just a brake disc issue, it's not a big issue in the whole perspective, because you just need to fix one part, you get that part right, and yeah, your car probably sorted, and you just got to take the performance back. But if it's a whole bigger issue, then that's something worrying for McLaren, I would say.
Hopefully, we don't have to go back to the GP2 days of McLaren.
Yeah, man.
And rounding off the 10 teams, Williams, I guess, haven't really been talked about much at all this weekend. I think the expectations were low after testing, and the expectations remain low after the first race. Do you see them challenging for anything above than, I don't know, 16, 17? Maybe
probably not
15.
in the near future. Yeah, probably not in the near future. But I do feel that Williams, with the team as a franchise, they have the resources to bring the car up the grid. And because I believe in the previous seasons they didn't upgrade the car because they wanted to focus on this year.
Yep.
And although they did not get it right as they would have hoped, there's still, it's a long season basically. So I do feel that, or at least I hope, because for a team like Williams, I do hope for them to at least battle for the last points position. Maybe not on a regular basis, but at least have a car competing enough to actually battle, And I think it is decent enough. Like we have seen Albert. Albert had a decent race. I think he finished P13.
Yep,
if
13.
I'm not wrong. Yeah, P13.
Ahead of the McLarens.
Yeah, exactly. And he still, he was able to battle the McLarens. There was quite a bit of battle going on with the Astons. So I mean, it's obvious that no team is way too far behind. It's just that these teams are a little bit behind in the midfield pack where they should be. So it's just about closing that fine gap. And the margins are so small, Like Christian Horner said in Drive to Survive, small margins make a big difference. So
Yep. I mean, that's just how F1 rolls,
Yeah.
It's always a small margins. But I guess that sums up the 10 teams.
We're yet to talk about one team in particular though. Ferrari. We haven't spoken anything about them.
Right. Of course, it was a magnificent showing, I would say, from the Italian team.
Yep.
A comprehensive win, pole, title win. Sorry, not title win. Pole, race win, and fastest lap. And so, do you think they can continue this form? Obviously, it's always a risky question when you're talking about Ferrari, because of how quickly it can all go south. But
they are the Arsenal of F1, if I must say.
Yeah, you could say that. Maybe a bit more successful than Arsenal, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Do you think they can maintain this form at least throughout the triple header?
Let's see, I guess. I mean, I think a lot of Ferrari fans are really optimistic about this season. And me, despite not being a Ferrari fan, it's great to see the Ferrari name as a brand back on the top, because it's been a long time. I mean, we were there when we last witnessed a Ferrari 1-2 in Singapore 2019.
Yep.
So, it's just nice to see them. Like, you don't have to be a Ferrari fan to like Ferrari, There's just something about that team which just attracts F1 fans to the team, basically. And I mean, their driver pairing is the one which gets me really excited. And I feel that's one of the best driver pairings in the grid, with Sainz and Leclerc, who I feel are basically equally matched. Like, I feel Sainz gets a lot of, not stake, but he's a very underrated driver in my opinion. He does his job smoothly. Maybe qualifying is sometimes not his best strength, but he always turns up in the races.
Yep.
And I mean, once again, he turned up, I mean, obviously he was a bit behind Leclerc for most of the race, but then, when the chance came, he was there, He made sure that he was always ahead of Perez, who we could probably say Perez had maybe a faster car than him in the whole perspective. So,
I mean, it's not easy to challenge Verstappen and stay comprehensively ahead of Perez for almost an entire race.
Yeah, exactly.
But Sainz made it look very easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel he was just a lone racer in the entire race, where he was just really good doing his thing, what he had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone calls him the smooth operator. So
Living up to the name.
yeah, absolutely, man. So I guess the future looks bright for Ferrari, but then, like I've said early on in the show again, that they have to keep this up. They need to bring upgrades whenever other teams bring upgrades, because we have seen like Red Bull in testing, they bought one upgrade and that improved them by a second, essentially. So yeah, it's all about the competition, and you got to stay ahead of the competition. And I guess I really hope Mercedes come into the fight as well, because if they really do, then I think we're going to have a bang of a season. Like we have essentially 3 drivers competing for the World Championship.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not ruling George Russell out as well, but who knows, man? Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, okay, I think we didn't really talk too much about Mercedes either. But while we're on the topic, this race was really just damage limitation, I think the whole team was willing to admit that. And I am too, we had to limit the damage and we did very, very well, thanks to
I mean, you guys exceeded expectations basically.
Very much, I think the aim was maybe 5th and 6th ideally, and podium and 4th. Excellent points haul in a race where we never really looked like podium favorites to begin with.
Yeah.
Right up until lap 57, I was not hopeful of a podium. But things just happen. Things just fall into place in the end. And special shout out to Lewis Hamilton. Special shout out to Lewis Hamilton, who has I think he has matched Schumacher's record of most seasons with at least one podium.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if matched or broke the record, but yeah, most seasons with at least one podium.
Okay, that's a good stat to have, I guess. I mean, he's already broken numerous stats, so it's hard to keep count of all the stats he's broken.
Yeah, I think the key for Mercedes now is to just keep working on the porpoising issue. That is really the main concern at the moment. Engine-wise, I think they can still compete, but the aero package has to be spot on if they want to stand a chance of the race wins. So yeah, promising future ahead. I think it requires a lot of work for sure.
Yep. I mean, yeah, I guess that's the real main issue for them. Like in the race pace, they were like about, I think, 9/10 laps slow almost, and they had really high tire decks as well.
Correct.
I think Hamilton did a 4-stop, I think, if I'm not wrong.
I just remember they were like messing around with the tires. They gave him the hard.
Yeah, he did a 4-stop, I think. I'm pretty sure he did it. 3 or 4 stops for sure. So yeah, I mean, I guess to close that gap is going to be a big challenge for them, and they have to do it quickly. Because Ferrari and Red Bull look really like they look the front leaders at the moment. So I hope by Australia or maybe the European season at least they can sort out their issues, because if it's anything later, then it's like the whole championship's basically gone.
I mean, after that, it's really just damage limitation for the whole season.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're just trying to maybe rescue a 3rd or 4th in the constructors.
I mean, the funny thing about this is that last season, Mercedes stopped their development of the car mid-season so that they could focus on this year's car.
Yep.
Whereas Red Bull was still developing their actual last year's car because they wanted to win the championship.
Right until the end of the season.
Exactly. Yeah, and after all this, still Red Bull have one of the, you could say, probably the fastest car still. So yeah, I guess it's something Mercedes have gotten wrong. I don't know how much is their no side pot actually working as much as they think.
Probably not as good as they wanted to.
Yeah. Sometimes ideas always look a lot better in the head than they actually do in reality. So
true. I mean, when Gunther Steiner says that, we considered this idea, but we decided against it. And that's a bit of a warning sign, I think.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yep. Well, next race, we look forward to the Saudi Arabian GP, which is happening this coming weekend, by the way, for those of you who are not aware. So predictions, Paul and Race winner. Yash, do you want to go first?
Okay. I would say pole is going to go to Verstappen still. I do feel that, I mean, last year he had this amazing quali lap until he binned it into the wall, unfortunately.
Yep.
But I still do feel like, I mean, just by gut instincts with Xiaomi, and I'm in no way a Verstappen fan. Like, I do like Verstappen, but I'm not saying this as a fan. I'm saying this, I still do feel that Red Bull actually do have the fastest car still. I feel that Bahrain was a little track specific because Ferrari always looked quick in Bahrain, if you think about it. 2019, they were leading all the way until Charles had that failure.
Yep.
And even, okay, probably not before that, but then they were always up there, you know, Ferrari, I felt. And I'm not discrediting Ferrari by any means. I feel like they are up there, right up there with Red Bull. But I just feel that after the whole race Verstappen has had, everything going against him in Bahrain, I think he'll be fired up to take that pole. Just hope that he doesn't bin it into the wall again this time. So yeah, I would say he'll go for the pole for the win. I don't know, man. Honestly, don't know. It's just so hard because it's just so early on to predict who's still really real quick. But I'm gonna go for Carlos Sainz to win. Yeah.
Interesting. You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah. So now I have to change my opinion a bit. I still think, you know, Max will take pole for all the same reasons you said. Title win. Oh my god, why do I keep saying title win? Race win. Well, I guess I would say Lewis Hamilton, but if not, Charles. Yeah.
I'm seeing a trend here. You're always, whenever you're going to say Ferrari, you're saying the title. So
I know.
Are you secretly hoping for Ferrari to win the title this year?
You know what? If Mercedes aren't in the fight, then I would gladly take a Ferrari.
Rather have Ferrari. Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, I cannot deal with another Red Bull win, you know. No.
Yeah.
Not again.
I feel the worst thing about Red Bull winning is how unsufferable Christian Horner becomes.
Yes. I don't want to think about it. Let's not go there. I'm
honestly curious to see Matteo Binotto when he wins, man. Like he's just gonna be calm, cool dude, like just chilling, I guess.
Speaking in Italian on the team radio.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you think about F1, you always see Toto Wolff and Christian Horner as the alpha males. Whereas like Binotto is probably just a chill back dude, you know, doing his own thing, minding his own business. But yeah, actually, I was really surprised to see Binotto actually was on the podium this in Bahrain when he went to
yes, they sent him up for the Constructors' Trophy.
Yeah, and I felt it was a really good touch by Ferrari. I think they just wanted to kind of show that, you know, Ferrari is back. So
it's a nice gesture, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So I guess that is it. We've summed up our thoughts on the Bahrain GP and our predictions for the upcoming Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And well, hopefully we'll be able to post another episode after that race. If not, we will catch you at a later time. We will definitely be uploading another episode at some point. So yeah, we'll see you there then. Well, but until then, it's me, Tarun, and him, Yash, signing off. And well, ciao, guys.